Hi, welcome to Personal Finance and Coffee Podcast. I'm your host, Gabriella, and we're going to talk all about finances because each and every one of us is the CEO of our money. No more waiting for someone else to figure it out. We're going to get hands on and get our money in order. Welcome. This is episode 1, and on this episode, we're going to talk about how you're not alone. This topic of money is quite interesting. We all deal with money because we have to live, we have to eat, we have to stay somewhere, but we don't really know how everyone else is doing it. I just know what I'm doing. Perhaps maybe a few friends, they if I ask, those that I feel comfortable enough to ask. But overall, I'm like, but man, how does this person do it? How does their math? So that's what this episode is all about. Me and you were not alone. Everyone, let's be honest, everyone is trying to figure it out. Okay, fine. There are those who have made it. They all started from most people. Let me not generalize. Most people started, how does this money thing work? Because on average, we don't learn this in school. We don't learn this at home. There are a few exceptions. But the normal setup is go to school, pass, get a job, get into the working environment, start business, or have a side hustle, then the goals, they're like kind of lined up. Get some money, buy a car, buy a plot of land, build your house, live upangisa, things like that. But the day-to-day events of like, there are more get-togethers of friends, there are more family birthdays than my budget can allow. Of my salary is not increasing, but the cost of food is increasing, school fees is happening, all those things. So the starting point is for you to know that you're not alone. And it's okay to start from, I don't know where to begin. The first place is to accept that it's not out of our own making that we find ourselves in this position. It's not out of our own making that from age 0 to now, we've been blank, we've been winging it. That's the first place, to accept and say, okay, going forward, I'm going to become curious and find this information. Because once you're aware that you're not alone, then the second interesting thing comes up. There are so many people and there's so much information about money out there. But all this information can go past us if we are not actually looking for it, because we're in an information age and there's a lot on Instagram, on TikTok, on podcasts, on YouTube, on, I don't know, there's Netflix, I don't know, there are documentaries. There's so much information, and the interesting thing is that these algorithms keep showing us what we express interest in. It can look like no one is talking about it, but there is actually a lot of content about money. So once we are aware that we are not alone, then we seek out information by those who have been open enough to put it out there, what they've gone through. So this is where the books come in, this is where the YouTube videos come in, and all that. So this is what I encourage you to do. Start to search out for this content. Most times when people talk about money and personal finance, they recommend books. But there are those who are like, man, books are not for me. Now, the advantage is that we're in an era where you can learn without reading a book. I love reading. That's the truth. Reading is my thing. Sometimes I listen to audiobooks, maybe when I'm moving. That is how I learn personal finance. I read books and I listen. But I am also aware that there are those who, one, either don't have the time to read or are not interested to read. That's where we have podcasts coming in, YouTube videos coming in. Even these books, they're audios, they also come in handy. Just set a timer. Say I'm going to do 20 minutes per day. Little steps. That is one. To decide to search out for this information in ways that work for you. If Instagram is your thing, then look for this content on Instagram. It's there. If TikTok is your thing, fine, get your information from TikTok. But of course, you don't take everything as it is. As you listen to this information, you'll begin to filter, this works for me, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Then you start to see, oh, the other person said this, sounds like this, maybe I can experiment, things like that. So once you are aware that It's okay to be aware and to accept that I am not sure how to do this money thing, because from the word go, it wasn't taught to us. So that's the first step, to become aware of the situation you're in, and you're not alone. We all start there. So many people, all of us, that is where we start. Now, it's one of the reasons why I found this podcast interesting, because once you're aware of that, the second thing is to find information about personal finance. Most of the content that is out there, books and what, a large percentage is written in the context of America or other countries. And there is also content that is made in the setup of Africa and Uganda, but it's not as much. So there are people who are like, those books are not relatable. And there is some truth, but on the other hand, the principles of money go all around. When you read a book and it's set up in the States, doesn't mean you do everything in the book. No, you just pick the principles that work for you. Those that don't, you leave. But the point is, I'm digressing. The point is, pick information and filter it. One, you're aware that you've been winging it, we didn't learn it, and you're not alone. We were all not, most of us were not taught. Two, seek out information in personal finance in platforms that work for you. It's not a must to read a book. It's okay to watch YouTube, it's okay to watch. That is, you can start from there, and the more you watch, the more you filter what works, what doesn't. Then the third thing is to try. When you consume educational content, and we do nothing about it, it's pretty much entertainment. For as long as you're simply consuming and you're not taking action, that is not education, that is entertainment. So the third step really is to give it a try. It's not that if you start it now, it must work. No. We are all different, and it's okay. If someone recommends, let me see an example I can give. If someone recommends that maybe you invest your money in shares, but personally you don't believe in that, it doesn't mean that you have to do it. But you can give it a try if you want to, and take your lessons out of it. Now, if someone talks about unit trusts, you can give it a try. I'm not saying you try everything that is risk averse, but the point here is that if you learn something on whichever platform you've chosen, give it a try. See what you learn from it. If you try budgeting on your notebook, hand to paper, and suddenly you lose the notebook, you don't move with it, you're like, this doesn't make sense for me. It's okay. Try budgeting in an Excel sheet. Maybe Excel is your thing. If it doesn't work for you, you leave your computer at home, you have a different computer at office, try Google Sheets. You get what I'm saying? Just as you get into this stage of learning about finances and money, you need to be practical. Because by the time, it takes a while to find what works for you, to find your rhythm, to say, this doesn't work for me. And the only way you can do that is by trying. So those are my 3 tips, kind of, as we start this journey. And surely you're not alone. That's the truth. We are all trying to have it figured out. Let me end this episode with a personal story. I got married young. I got married when I think I was 22. I was in my second year of university. And when I got married, I had to leave my parents' home. And as a student, now I had a home to run, food, rent, the whole. I had a child at the time, one child. Then I got my second born while I was in third year. My course was 4 years, so while I was in third year, I had my second born. Now, this aspect of running a household in terms of income was frustrating for me. At the time, my source of income was in business. I used to sell panties and undergarments, panties, bras, boxers, things like that. But I would make the money and then I would buy milk, charcoal, what, and I would never really see the revenue, the profit, because the house had to keep running. So balancing was there was no growth. Then the stock would get done, and I would have no capital to restock because I used the capital in the house. Anyway, this is where I started. This was in 2008, but now you're going to know my age. Anyway, yeah. So this was a while back. So like in 2008, when I was in the thick of this, I was still at campus and all. This was in 2008. Yeah, at the time, I didn't even know who to talk to, honestly. I didn't know who to talk to. So that's where I started. I felt quite alone in trying to make ends meet, and how does this whole money thing work. So the point of the story is that I took these 3 steps to heart. I read books, watched a lot of YouTube, podcasts, all that, and I must say that I'm not perfect, but I'm in a better place than then. Not because now I'm working, no, but because I've tweaked the system and I kind of have been able to find what works for me, which we shall keep talking about along the way. So I encourage you. I encourage you to not feel alone, to take one step at a time. Don't feel like don't be too hard on yourself. Give yourself some grace and keep reaching out. Keep looking for the resource that will work for you. Because this information out there, sometimes the way a person says something, it may not resonate, it may not click for you, but someone else will say the exact same thing. But maybe because of their vibe, maybe because of their energy, maybe something will click because the other person has said it in a different way. So don't feel like personal finance content is repetitive. You never know what will click for you. Or you may listen to something, and at the time you listen to it, you're in a different place. Yeah. So I encourage you to, yeah, you can do this. It will work, and it is a long journey, I must admit. It takes time, it takes effort, but it is worth it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the end of the podcast. I really do appreciate your time. I hope you found value in this episode. Share with your loved ones and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, you are the CEO of your money. No one else is.